Welcome to the Family Business Podcast, where family is everybody's business. I'm here with Mary today, and we're talking about family and how we integrate our family and business together and what we do. And what we do here at this table is talk about things that on Sunday we just don't have the time to talk about. So we were always, encouraged, Mary, by people asking us questions. How have you set an environment for your kids that want them to come alongside of you and serve? In our case, it's the ministry.
Right.
But our conversation can appeal to really anybody that has a business that they have started, even the family being their own business. How are they able to get buy-in from the kids at the earliest age possible so that you set that child on the path that will be helpful for them to either walk in your footsteps? So in the ministry, they come alongside of us, then eventually, it starts like they're behind us, they follow us.
Yeah. Then
they come alongside of us, they walk with us, and one day they'll be walking ahead of us and we'll be following them.
Sure.
That's the whole point here, hopefully. So if you do this in business as well, there's a model that we see where there's some similar habits or practices or principles that we followed. So that's what we're talking about today with our family podcast. So being that our kids come alongside of us, let's go back and think of some of the non-negotiables.
Right.
We already said church was important. We said that was very strategic. Their relationship with God was very strategic in serving in the church. But let's talk about three more today.
Okay.
I'd like to get three more out there for us. For instance, as we think about leadership in our home, how important it was for our kids to start to develop a mindset of leadership. Do you remember back when all of this would have started with us?
Oh, yeah. I would say I have one memory, my first memory with Christopher. He was about 13, and he was not happy with the way he looked. He had just kind of blown up over the summer, and he was a typical 13-year-old boy, but he could sing, and I knew he could sing because we were in the car. I would force him to sing. He had no choice. He's in our family, you're going to sing. And I knew he had a good voice, and our youth group was very little at the time, and we needed somebody to lead worship, and I said to him, you need to help sing and lead worship on Wednesday nights in youth. And he let me know right then that he was never going to be a worship leader. He was never going to be in ministry. Do you remember what he said he was going to do?
No.
He was going to play for the NFL.
This chunky white kid that was super slow. Yeah, I remember
that liked Funyuns a whole lot. I don't think I've ever seen you run. I've heard you sing. Are you really? But he had it in his mind, and I remember.
Madden convinced him he was a great football player.
Well, his thumbs were great at football. Poor Chris. He tells his story, so I can tell it too. It's not humiliating. It's the truth. And I remember thinking to myself, all right, what do I do here? Because I knew what my mom had done. I knew the stories of your mom and dad and how they transitioned in this moment. But I remember thinking, wow, this is hard. Because as a mom, I wanted to please my son. And we always had these tendencies to believe our children. And I thought, well, what if he is this split second thought, what if he is the next Marino? We don't know. Maybe this is a calling on his life. He's 12. Maybe God is speaking to him. And then, of course, reality set in very quickly. No, right now, you're not there. Here's where you are. We need a worship leader, and you're going to sing. And I remember he fought me on that, and I said, okay, here's what we're going to do. You're not going to have to lead worship forever. You just have to lead worship till someone better than you comes along. And the minute someone better than you comes, you can sit down and they can take your place. Well, it was sort of reverse psychology with him because I knew he would love leadership. He had just never tasted it yet. I knew that he would love the idea of walking in a whole new role where he was not just a kid that went to kids ministry or in youth group, that he would love having to take the lead. And he did. And that never ended.
No, it didn't.
All the way to this day.
No. What's, I think, important is if you see your kid have a future in leading other people.
Right.
then you have to put them in an environment where other leaders are operating real leadership skills.
Absolutely.
It's something that is not only caught. Leadership is taught and caught.
Yeah.
It's something that you sit down and teach them, which we were able to do, but it was also caught, meaning that they got around other people and they saw how leaders think, how leaders talk, how leaders process,
Yes.
how leaders reserve comment at certain times, and then how leaders know when to go in strong on something. It's something that they were able to learn by watching others, which then meant it was important for you and I to get them around other leaders.
Oh, yeah. Environment's everything.
So when we would go to conferences, the church always knew that if Steve and Mary were going to go to a conference, the whole family was going to be sent to a conference.
Absolutely.
So it was going to be part of the budget.
That's right.
Because the future leaders needed to be sewed into not only Steve and Mary, but the kids, so they can be preparing them for the next generation. So we'd get our kids around other leaders.
Yeah.
And there were challenges with that.
Yes, there were.
Because if you get them around other leaders, then you need to teach them how to operate when they're around other leaders.
Yeah.
You just don't let your kids run into an office where there's leaders all over sitting, having conversation, and your kid all of a sudden becomes the center of attention.
Right.
You had to teach
learn.
them.
They had to learn, yeah.
You had to teach them when to say something, when not to say something.
Sure.
We had to teach them to know their place. We had
Yeah.
to teach them first to be able to go up, and when you see somebody that's a leader, when you walk into their office, recognize who they are, shake their hand.
Right.
I can remember teaching Christopher how to really shake a man's hand, and the kids don't think that way. But all of that was putting them in a position around other leaders
Yeah.
that would then help them catch what a leadership vibe is and how they should be walking in
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Now, we had one of them that was kind of passive. And we had to teach that one how to be more confident when
That's
they were
right.
around leaders.
That's right.
That they wouldn't just sit in the background and because they may not have felt as comfortable. We taught them how to feel comfortable when they were around other leaders. And those leaders, Mary, because they were relational, it wasn't just a pay for play kind of a thing where it was a gig to them. They knew the value of our church family.
That's right.
And it was relational
Yes.
at all points.
Right.
So those leaders would take time
Always. It's true.
and sow into our leaders.
That's right.
Remember what the Jones brothers did every time they'd
Yeah.
see him?
Yeah.
Remember?
I think I remember.
No, you don't. They would give them money.
Oh, yeah, they did give him money.
They'd pull out a 20, pull out a 50 as they got older and older.
I thought you were going to say they would speak over their lives. They always did that too.
Besides that,
yes, they
there you
would
go.
put money into their pockets.
They would put money into their pocket. And our kids couldn't wait to see them.
I know, I know. But they saw those pastors as people in their lives, as influencers, that we would then try to connect the dots. We always had those follow-up conversations with them when we would leave. You were always good about that, to the point where when a moment like that would happen and they would receive that gift or be around that environment, you would say, all right, guys, I want you to notice what just happened there. Do you see that? That was an opportunity for you to connect the dots for them.
Yeah.
So that they were able to see that blessing and that offering was because they were obeying us. They were in the environment that we put them in, and they were submitting to it, and then the blessing started to come in their lives. So I think sometimes as parents, we do things and we don't explain things. It's easy to not cause them to connect the dots to see, wow, that's why that happened. If I do this, I reap this reward. And then they love the fruit that's on the tree of their life because they start to see it, they start walking in it.
Yeah. And that's why Dad was never the fun one.
No.
Dad was always pointing out the principles. Do you see what happened
You mean
there?
you?
Yes.
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 No.
But then,
But you
part
were
of
always
that-
teaching
Yeah,
and instructing.
Well, it is. That's just the way my brain was always wired. And
But it's so important. It's helpful.
a lot of it was correction because I'd see things they'd do in the presence of other leaders, and I didn't want them to embarrass themselves, let alone embarrass us in our church ministry. So it was always about teaching. But then you mentioned the other part, because when those people would come to town,
Right.
because there was a relationship already formed
Sure.
in other people's houses, in other people's churches, when some of those people, the Binions, would come into town, or even your own sister and
Yeah.
Danny would come into town, or Mike and Kathy Hayes, our pastors, when they would come into town, there was always those moments in the back rooms or in our home, not just in church, where that leadership would begin to then pour into our kids.
Yeah. Yeah. We never made those relationships for you and I only. We wanted to share that leadership gold and those relationships with our children. And I think what it boils down to for people maybe whose kids are not in ministry, something that you say to people all the time in our church, when you bring your kids to church, bring them over to me and make them say hi to me.
Right? Yeah.
You have always done that. Bring your kids over, bring your little girls over and let them shake my hand. Introduce your kids to me and Pastor Mary. And it might seem trivial, but it is not. When your kids have an understanding that there are these older leaders, mentors, people that their parents respect, that are interested in them too,
Yep.
and are helping shape them too, it changes everything for your kid. I really believe it's like this quantum leap for them
Yeah.
that it allows in their life. They're not afraid of authority. They're not afraid of leaders. They don't feel so far removed, but they're also learning. And when you break down those barriers as a parent to say, that's your pastor, that's your pastor's wife, that's your worship leader, that's your youth pastor, and you as a parent intentionalize that relationship, sit at their feet. You know, it's so easy, and I believe the enemy drives this wedge, for us as, say we're not the pastors, and we go to the church, where the enemy wants to quickly erode is that very thing you're talking about, that those mentors in our kids' lives that are so invaluable.
Yeah.
And we as parents can become critical. Well, that youth pastor, I don't like the way he does this, or the worship leader doesn't sing my favorite song. And we talk about it at home.
Oh, yeah.
And now you can't set them before those role models because you've talked bad about them. And I will say that we've all fallen prey to that. And we are very quick. Do you remember that one time we were at the house? It was years ago, and our kids were younger and impressionable, and a relative was over, and they started talking bad. Not bad, but they brought up, kind of in a negative light, a pastor that was in the news. And you almost came out of your skin. I was slightly embarrassed because you got so aggressive about it. And you shut it down immediately. And it was like this reverberating effect in the whole house. Everyone that was there knew that was a moment. We don't talk bad about pastors. No. And I'll never forget that, because the message it sent to our children is that's off limits. Our children need leaders. If we want them to be leaders, they need to honor and respect leaders. And how can they do that if the role models that are in their lives, we're casting them down with our words? They're not perfect,
No.
but they're available.
Yep.
Use them for your children.
Yeah, and I never understood why people would do that. I never understood why. Well, I know why. I just don't understand why somebody would be more wise. Never speak negative about a leader that you're bringing around your family to influence their life.
No, you need 'em
if
too
that
bad.
person is not a good influence, don't hang.
Don't bring 'em
Don't bring them
around.
around the
That's
family.
right.
But don't bring them around the family and talk so sweet and complimentary about that person
Right.
when they're with your family. But then when they leave, start criticizing them and cutting them up and talking behind their back. I mean, that right there shows your kid, that's a little messed up.
Yeah. Oh, it does.
And then they can't respect the person. Maybe they don't, are afraid to respect the person because dad or mom doesn't respect the person. They don't want to make mom and dad feel bad.
No. Well-
so they won't respect that person. And
Yeah.
we can pick up on that, Mary.
Oh, I know.
Leaders pick up on
You're
that
right.
kind of manipulation.
Yeah.
When someone is feeling small and intimidated by the leader,
Right.
and them are really being two-faced.
Yeah.
Well, no leader likes a suck up.
No.
They don't like somebody that's just doing it in their presence.
That's
It's
right.
got to be real. And when you do that, then you're kind of doing the second thing that's so important. Not only do you put your younger generation in the presence of leadership, but then you, as a parent, instruct or model, better yet, model
Right.
leadership before your kids.
Absolutely.
At all times, you're realizing what I'm doing, I've got all these eyes watching me. What I'm saying, how I'm saying it, how I'm handling my life, these kids are watching how I'm doing
No,
it.
they are.
So you're instructing your kids every step along the way by your example
That's right.
of modeling leadership.
Stephanie said something in a previous podcast that we had together. She said, you know, Mom, you and Dad would always call out in us the areas that might be hidden that the enemy was using. And you were never afraid of what church people would think. You always brought it back to God and our relationship with the Lord. How are you hurting God? And if the church people saw them behaving badly, well, that was on them. We weren't afraid of that. We never let that be something that kept us from speaking to our children about something, because what will the church people think? Or calling things out in our kids, or sitting them down when we weren't afraid to sit them down. And I was really impressed that she connected those dots, because what she's basically saying is good parents, especially in church, lead by example, and they're not two-faced.
Yeah.
And parents that want to know how to be great parents and raise great kids, be good people.
Yeah. That's
do
where it
things
starts,
honestly.
Mary.
Do things above board.
Be a Christian.
Be a Christian. And it's not easy, but you can do it because it's what your kids see day in and day out. And if you do kind of creep over into negativity in front of your kids where you're critical, correct it and apologize for it. Be quick to say, you know, I'm raising you to be a leader. And what I did not exemplify leadership.
Yep.
And I apologize. I repent. I should never have said what I said about our youth pastor or our worship leader or another person in the church or a relative person in the family. I never should have done that, because that doesn't exemplify for you what I want to be portrayed in your life.
That's so good. And Mary, I'd say on top of that, you know, we mentioned so much about our family business being ministry.
Yeah.
But this translates to everybody's business or everybody's family. They're good, wholesome principles.
That's right.
You don't have to consider yourself, you know, a churchgoer to use these principles that are so valuable to the well-being emotionally and mentally of your kids. What you're saying here is whatever principle of leadership that you could demonstrate that's healthy before your kids, then it's going to help them in every walk of their life.
That's right.
And that's so important. The point there is you don't want to put your kids around leaders and you not act like a leader.
Oh, hashtag. That should be a hashtag. That's so great. But can I tell you something? Can we be real? Is this the moment we can be real about some things here?
Do it.
I think one of the things that we are watching happen in our modern day is that we went 50, 60, 70 years ago from being the generation that listened to our parents. We were apprentices of our parents. We learned. Our parents led us and guided us. And somehow we've shifted into a culture that we listen to our kids. I don't know how we got there. I don't know.
I got a hunch.
Okay, and you can answer that. But I will tell you, I hear it constantly. Well, my kids said, and my kids believe.
Yeah.
And that is not to take away from smart children. We want to have kids that are smart.
Yeah.
We listen to our kids in some areas, but we also know we have a position as role models, fathers, mothers, pastors, leaders, those that have gone before. I can't ever expect Gabby, our youngest, to understand a decision that I'm going to make as her mother that is 40 years. Am I 40 years ahead of her? She's
Close
20,
enough.
I'm 50. 30 years further down the road. There's experiences she has not had. How does she know?
Yeah.
She doesn't know.
No.
But I think it's so interesting that we're watching this happen. We've become a generation that are letting people who are unseasoned, they do not have experience, but they've got university knowledge.
Yeah.
They've got phone knowledge. They're the knowledge generation. They can Google it and give you an answer of a question you don't even care about in under a second.
Yeah.
And so because information is so quick for them, it can easily create an environment where we're setting them up to be really these prodigies of knowledge and information. And, but my kid said, well, are they right? Are they seasoned? Are you sure that's correct?
Mary, it's the knowledge and understanding.
Right.
They may have the ability to get the knowledge, but they don't have an understanding yet that comes with years of experience. That's why when you're being told as a kid growing up, don't smoke cigarettes, don't smoke cigarettes, don't smoke cigarettes. And then you're over there as a kid like, well, that's not a big deal,
Yeah.
man. It's cool. Look at the attention. And next thing you know you're hooked on cigarettes and you're like, now I see why they told me
That's right. Not to
not
do
to
this.
smoke cigarettes.
Exactly.
Now I understand it. And then when you get cancer and emphysema, now you're like, I wish I would have never
listened.
done.
That's
So it's not good enough just to have knowledge. They need to have understanding as well. And as much as our kids may have knowledge, which we appreciate, even teaching kids this,
Yeah.
okay, about leadership.
Yeah.
Hey, you may be the smartest person in the room, but that doesn't mean you're the one in authority.
That's right. That's right.
You may be smart,
But you don't have authority.
Doesn't mean you have the authority, which then means when you walk into a room, leadership says, who's got the authority here?
That's right.
And my parent, the adult in the room, 95% of the time has the authority.
Yeah.
So let me watch what I'm saying, how I'm saying it. Let me be respectful. Let me be honoring.
That's right.
And not go and try to side with a bunch of people that are outside of my parents' influence to think those are the people that I need to be listening to.
No.
So I think there's tremendous wisdom to that phrase. I do think this is just a work of the enemy.
Oh, totally.
I remember back in the day when our kids would be watching certain television shows, and they always, even in cartoons, they made the parents out to look stupid.
Yeah, they were just idiots.
Ignorant.
That they've been doing that
You
for
know?
years now.
And so what does that do? It erodes the confidence in the parental authority
It does.
in a kid's life.
And let me just quickly say this. Whenever we'd walk through the room and the kids had the TV on, and either one of us would hear that or see a scene play out, we would make them stop it. We didn't make them turn it off, but we would use it as a teaching tool. We'd make them pause it and say, do you see how they just made that dad look? That's not normal. That's pretend, and it's not right, guys. And they go, okay, can we watch our show again? But we never let that. If we heard it, we would stop them and instruct them and go, that's not healthy, guys. That's not your dad, and that is not your mom. Okay, play the show. But we would make sure they knew that was fantasy, not reality. That was the worldview,
So true.
not our view.
Which means, here's what we did. We said we put our kids in the presence of other leaders.
Yep.
Then as parents and leaders in the church, we had to model leadership.
Yeah.
The other thing, though, is what you just said. We had to teach leadership.
That's right.
Constantly teach it, which meant we had to learn it first. Can't teach your kids something you don't have.
You don't have.
So we had to constantly learn leadership. Now, our job requires us to do it. But Mary, I remember early on in our church, I was always preaching some form of leadership principle,
Always.
which doesn't come across as something that's always sexy and exciting, that's going to build a crowd. I was more of a teacher and holding people accountable for the behavior, because I particularly thought that the only way to really to enjoy your life is to lead your life.
Yeah.
Well, I learned that a lot of people don't want to be led.
No.
I mean, they want to be led. They don't want to lead.
Yes.
They want to get behind somebody else and follow them, because it's easier to be a follower than it is to be a leader. So
much
I would
easier.
always teach on leadership principles. And that's why it became important to me to develop these leaders and then to teach it constantly to our kids. Because to me, 24/7, if they were one day going to walk behind us in this family business of ours, and then one day be given the opportunity to lead this family business of ours, then that is a blessing. Having that blessing to lead this ministry, that's a real gift.
Yeah.
But the principle of leadership says, to whom much is given, much is required. That then meant that we don't take a break from training
No.
to lead this ministry. If one day you're going to have the privilege of leading this ministry, then every day right now, our job is to prepare you for it.
Yeah.
So I know some people have a mindset when it comes to talking about their job or their business. When we get home, we shut it down.
Right.
I didn't go with that.
No, you
I
didn't.
think, wait a minute, how do I shut something down that becomes our life? This ministry is our life. It's not just something we do. It's not a job.
No,
it's
it's
not a
who we are.
career. It's who we are.
That's right.
And if the kids are going to have the privilege of walking into this thing in the future, then that means you're going to constantly be taught, because maybe behind closed doors, I'm getting worked up here.
That's okay. This is good. Go.
Maybe behind closed doors is when they will start to manifest something that could get in the way
Yeah,
of their leadership
that's right.
here at this church.
There you go.
So to me, it's like, no, if it's behind closed doors, if it's in our home and it's wrong, let's address it. Because what happens in the home can destroy what goes on in a ministry. What happens in the home can mess up a business.
Yeah.
So you're constantly under scrutiny.
No.
To whom much is given, much is required. And what's required of us is a constant ongoing of developing leadership. Because I think every person is a leader.
Yeah.
At least having to lead their own life. If they don't lead a company, if they don't lead a team, if they don't lead a ministry, then at least they have to lead their own life.
Yes.
So there was never a break
No.
from teaching, modeling, getting our kids around other leaders. It was constant.
And it is still, and I something that we both live by is not just reach the bar, it's raise the bar. So when you're talking to your kids or wanting to raise children to live by a certain expectation, it's so easy to get lazy and just get them to just reach some bar that we've set.
Yeah.
Instead of saying, no, we're going to raise it. You know, there's other cultures that aren't American that it's the expectation for their children to do well.
Yes.
And we in America, it's our culture, we can get very lazy as parents. I can tell you, me personally, it's taken both of us to keep that bar not only met, but raise it and expect more from your kids in the area of leadership that they can give.
Yeah.
So one thing with kids getting married and moving out of the house that has been on my mind, and it's one of those things where you think, okay, I've had them in this house for all these years. Did I do everything that I was supposed to do? Have I imparted into them everything that they need when they leave this house to be good leaders of their own home? And it really can play on your mind. Like, did I teach them how to make their bed good? Or are they neat? Do they clean up their bathrooms? Do they take out their own garbage? Do they get up on time?
And what's
they
the
make
answer
their
to
bed.
all those questions?
I didn't say I had the answer. I just said these are things that I think about. I can tell you that it's easy to default and say, oh, they'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Or let me be a parent a little bit longer and lovingly instruct and teach. Because what can happen as parents, especially as our kids get older, is that we back out too quick because we are tired. You know, when Gabby got in her senior year of high school, she was my third child that we homeschooled, but I homeschooled. Let's be honest. I mostly homeschooled.
So true.
And so when
Hey, let me say something. I did nothing for homeschool.
I appreciate
You did it
being
all.
honest.
No,
yes,
for real.
and they did very good. They did pretty good. Yeah. I'm a proponent of it. But I remember when we got to Gabby's senior year, something that I really give the Holy Spirit credit for prompting me. I had been friends with another lady whose youngest daughter had been homeschooled and really didn't get the attention in that senior year, and she just went bonkers and did not do well. And I remember having a conversation with the mom, and I said, your older two are just so together, and they're leaders, and they're leading their own careers and all that. What went wrong? And she didn't have an answer, but I did. Because I remember sitting with her one day, and by the time she got to this daughter, she was so tired that she was talking bad about all the teachers at school. And the daughter wanted to get out of school early because she was so smart and she had it all together, and this teacher wasn't doing this for her. And the mom, we're sitting at dinner and I'm listening to the mom go, oh, honey, I know those teachers, they're terrible. These teachers don't do their jobs. They just never, they're just so full. Their plates are so full. And I'm thinking, you should never talk bad about the teachers to your kids. Now, I did it for a little bit, but you have to pull yourself out of that.
Yeah.
Because what ended up happening,
to defend your kid.
You defend your child. That's a normal reaction. But when you're making and you're trying to raise young people that lead their lives well, that is not a lesson you should miss out on teaching. And it shook me. And I looked at Gabby. I said, that was her third. This is my fourth. It's easy to get tired and say, you know what? A GED sounds pretty good. You're so smart and you're so talented. You're not even going to go to college because you can sing and you can lead. Just get in ministry if you already know what you need to do. And I realized very quickly that if I went that direction, I'm breaking a pattern and a formula and a system that we had as a family to raise up strong young people.
Yeah.
Not only for God, but to lead their lives well. And we leaned in hard. And I remember I sat her down and talked to you about it. I said, Gabby, this is your senior year, and it's going to be the best year, most intentional year. Everything that you want to get out of this year, we're going to squeeze out. I'm not going to go on the road. I'm not going to be gone. We're going to be intentional about this year. And we were. And 9 months of really leaning in, listening to God, and comparing to someone else who did not do that.
Yep.
She's like the leader of leaders.
Oh my gosh. Scary.
Yes.
Scary. And, I could go on this subject, Mary, because I really value it. It's one of the things that in my heart, I feel like God's just raised me up to try to do because I want to be the right kind of leader.
And you are.
That really leads my family,
Sure.
leads my life first, leads my family, leads our ministry. But I could talk about something else as simple as even college education.
Right.
Why it is so important to get our kids in and through college.
It is.
Just seeing Gabby open up her little diploma from with her AA
I know.
from Miami-Dade, just seeing her excitement of something as simple as a 2-year,
She
recognition.
did it.
She's like,
Yeah.
what that gave me,
Yes.
which is now helping move her on to the next 2 years of her studies so that she could get her diploma, her
That's right.
degree, how important that is, what that made her feel like. Because I think the first area of leadership in a kid's life is the way they get their education. You got to lead yourself in that classroom to get that education.
And it humbles you.
It really does.
It's good for you.
And we encourage our young people on staff to get your education.
Yes, we do.
We even come alongside of them and help them financially to the best that we can, because even this, when
It's
they're
important.
working part-time, I always say, what's your priority?
Right.
My job? No, it's not your job while you're working here. Your priority is your education.
right.
Get your education. We're going to do our best to help you financially in any way that we can, give you extra time for studies, whatever you got to do, because that priority has to be education.
Finish.
Get the kids through.
That's right.
And if you have the financial resources to set it aside as a kid, as your kid is younger, do it to help prepare them
That's right.
for their future education. It already locks in their minds that, hey, you're going to college.
Yeah.
That's not something that's not negotiable. You got to do it, because that's the development of leadership. Well, we're blessed today that we can have this conversation. It's not done.
No.
We still have a lot more training that we have to do. But I would say for anybody that really wants to see a solid kid turn into a real solid adult that's going to give you great grandkids, that's
Yeah.
going to come alongside of you in your business or your ministry, or just to have them there staying close and connected with your family, you're going to have to help them deal with this area of leadership. Get them around strong leaders. Then model leadership to
That's
the best
right.
of your ability, which means you're going to have to learn leadership so that in turn you can teach leadership.
I love that.
All right. Before we close out today on this family
boy.
business podcast,
Oh, boy.
you ready?
I think so.
I'm okay with this question.
I'm never ready.
Okay. I'm okay with this question because I have my own answer.
Uh-oh.
It's different. All right.
Okay.
What is your original hair color?
How dare you, sir?
Oh my gosh.
I have an answer.
I know.
Do you know what it is?
I'm looking at your eyebrows.
Say it.
Is it brown?
No.
What is it?
No. It is a specific brown.
Oh.
Chestnut brown. That's what my mama told me.
Is that a lighter shade, closer to the blonde
Do you know
brown?
what the color of a chestnut is?
I think it's
Bring
on the
one
wall
in
behind
here.
me.
Bring one in here.
Oh my gosh.
It's exactly chestnut
chestnut.
or
Chestnut.
mousy brown. It's either mouse. I prefer chestnut.
Chestnut. Okay, well, now you know.
Now you know.
And me?
You like to tell people that it was red.
That
That's what
was it.
That's the story you tell.
Yep, the crossing guard the patrol on 82nd Avenue.
In third grade.
And 30th Street when I would walk to Banyan Elementary School. She was the first one that called me Carrot Top.
No way.
Yes. And she was American. In Westchester. She was American. And she called me Carrot Top.
Aw,
Yeah.
let's just start calling you that.
Now it's what color? Chestnut nut gray.
It's a hybrid.
I got your hair.
Okay.
There you go. That's it for the Family Business Podcast.